Hi, I'm Shane Dooley. As a business innovation advisor at Callaghan Innovation, I've had the opportunity to help New Zealand businesses not just survive, but thrive amid challenging times. The businesses we're talking to today show how using tech solutions to stay on top of staff financial management can drive success in your business. To find out more about these high-tech solutions, including options for your business, we're joined by 4 of these companies online. First company I'd like to get an intro from, hi guys, would be Dave from Figured.
Hi.
Maybe if you give us a minute on what you guys do and who you are.
Yeah, sure. My name's Dave Dodds. I'm from Fieldays, and Figured's a financial management platform built specifically for agriculture. So there's a reason we're here today, obviously. And what makes Figured a little bit different is that we're trying to do 3 things on the same within the same platform. First one is giving farmers great advice, where they can get information, they can answer questions about their own financial performance. That's pretty interesting in these times that we live in, of course. The second one is that we give farmers great access to financial advisors. We've got probably most of New Zealand's accountants and financial advisors using the Figured platform now. So through the platform, they can actually collaborate with their advisor, get advice. They're all seeing the same piece of information and so on. And the third thing, which we're pretty proud of and we've worked really hard on, is also to unlock access to lending. So, we've got large banks, ASB and BNZ are very supportive of the Figured program. And that really is around our mission of trying to improve the financial viability and sustainability of farming. So we think, better information, better advice, access to capital are the 3 things we're unlocking in the platform.
Cool. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Guy, maybe tell us a little bit about Onside.
Yeah, sure. So Onside is started off grassroots in the dairy industry. So started by Juliet McLean and Ryan Higgs from Synlait. So Juliet, obviously co-founder of Synlait. Ryan was an operations manager for a bunch of the farms. And he just had this pain point of, I don't know who's where in real time. I don't know they have the right information. And ultimately, I want to know that they're safe. So that's where Onside began, and it started off as a simple health and safety app, but it's really evolved in the last sort of 4 or 5 years that we've been going into more of an operational and a communications tool for a property. What do you need to know who's there in real time, know they have the information to keep themselves safe. For contractors, they can sign in their car, which is always a bonus. They don't have to get out and sign that soggy paper sign-in book. And then for the people in the office, they don't have to manage heaps of paper reports. They can do that all digitally. And ultimately, above all of this, what we're trying to help with is the biosecurity problem that faces the world and New Zealand. So once understand the movements in the rural sector, you can start to really look at, okay, if there was a disease, say bovis, to turn up on this property, what's the movement of rural New Zealand or the dairy or the livestock industry in Canterbury? And how would that spread? Where do you test? How to contain that? So that's our ultimate goal, is to be New Zealand's biosecurity engine and help with that ultimately to the day. So we started off in dairy and livestock, but really we've spread all through different rural sectors, and some of the biggest ones now being horticulture, mostly kiwi fruit, and viticulture.
Cool, great. And Karen, PaySauce?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Kieran from PaySauce. We are New Zealand's fastest growing online payroll company, and we specialise in the agri space. So we've got thousands of farmers who use PaySauce, either the desktop version or the apps if they're out and about on the farm. And we just provide compliance for them for our legislation for payroll. It works out all of the pay for them, all of their leave calculations. The app is helpful for the employees because they can enter their hours, their timesheet hours through the app. There are lots and lots of features that really help the employer stay compliant. We've got special features as well, designed exactly for farmers to help them keep safe, with a few specific legislation requirements that they've now got to adhere to. And we just find that it's really popular, really helpful, and with our really good support service behind the scenes, it means they've got someone they can call when they need help as well.
Great. Genevieve, tell us a little bit about PickMe.
Hey, I'm Genevieve and I'm from PickMe, and we get seasonal hiring. Searching for and hiring seasonal staff is stressful. It's a problem that I know multiple people online face every day, but multiple times a year. It's made harder by weather and also now global pandemics. It's not only stressful, but it's also time consuming. We know that if you hire somebody for 6 weeks or you hire them for a year, there's the same amount of paperwork. So at Pickman, we got sick of seeing businesses struggling to find the right workers and chase up paperwork. The decision to hire is straightforward. We have a few key pieces of information, and PickMe makes that straightforward decision possible. So seasonal workers arrive, prepared, compliant, and on time, and you no longer need to manually create and process individual job offers, employment contracts, and chase up worker information. You can create one job, and that can be matched with hundreds or thousands of workers, and often be made automatically to workers that fit your core business's criteria. So during COVID-19, we were able to reduce the time to hire by 70%. And we're launching our beta products. So what we're looking for are customers that want to work with us, because we're all about people and not process. So you can check out our website. Thanks.
Cool. So guys, this is an example of how COVID has changed how we interact with technology. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on what that has done for the rural sector and your customers in particular, and have you seen some marked changes? And I guess also, do you think they'll stay and remain? So maybe Guy, have a go with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind starting on that one. We doubled our growth in COVID because ultimately we have two sides to our platform. We have a free side, which is purely digital sign in, sign out, and then we've got the other side, which goes into your compliance and risk management, that sort of thing. The free version was so perfectly placed for COVID for anyone without friction to be able to pick it up and have that traceability. It sort of allowed people to sign in on their own device, so there was no touching of shared surfaces. People could communicate without having to be face-to-face, much like Zoom took off. And just being able to have the traceability of who was where if there was someone that tested positive. So we had heaps of support from industry bodies, and I think it really did a digital shift for a lot of people, especially people that were sort of on the fence, thinking it was something they had to get to, but it was maybe the 6th or 7th thing on their list that they never got to. So this really forced the issue, and I think now, for what I've seen, it's going to be something that continues to happen in the future, because people have seen that tech actually isn't that scary, and it is operationally a massive benefit in the field.
And sticking around, do you think it will? People's
I think so, yeah.
change?
So I think maybe people thought it would be a temporary thing, but now that they've seen, I could be at home having a coffee, for example, and get alerts in real time who's checked into my orchard or my vineyard, and be able to click in at any point in time and see who's there without having to go to the field and get the paper sign-in book and find out from there if they've even signed in. So I think, that's really shown the benefit of having technology and especially being able to have it spread out across a big geographical landscape like it is in rural.
Genevieve, you mentioned in your intro that it did have quite an effect. What have you seen?
Yeah, what happened for us is that, COVID meant that you couldn't do things the way that you'd always done them. And it impacted so many areas of your business. But for us, we've got a kiwi fruit orchard. And it's the reason why we built PickMe, is because I found that I couldn't get the right workers in the time that I needed. And I had a really short window to get them. And so that was made even harder with COVID-19, because we couldn't do the same face-to-face processes that we'd always done. But that was a real opportunity for PickMe, because what we were able to trial was a process where workers were literally applying in their jammies the night before, filling in all the information, doing an online induction so that they were arriving literally the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning, prepared, compliant, and ready to start work. And it meant that these businesses could focus on training those short-term workers and seasonal workers to do the work that they needed. And we've just seen that's removed the stress that we've seen growers having, and that's what's really important for us. So fundamental, really, really exciting stuff. And I hope that will continue that momentum.
Cool. Karen, what changes have you guys seen?
Yeah, we found exactly the same sort of scenarios. People that were maybe nervous or worried or didn't have the time to look into a software solution for a problem they were having on farm. For us, it was around the people space. During COVID, they were kind of forced to do that. It was quite incredible to us how many people were still using sort of an Excel spreadsheet or an old-fashioned way of working out their payrolls, and then suddenly they're thrown into a position where they can't access a certain computer, or they needed to be able to do things online. So we actually came up with a free version of our product really quickly within the first week of COVID, so that people who didn't have access to something could use a free version of PaySource, still have all of the benefits of their pay being worked out properly, so they were still compliant. I think I've been doing this for a long time now. I've never once heard someone say to me, but I love getting fines from IRD. So long as you can stay compliant and make sure that everything's being filed on time from a payroll perspective, it's just been such a time saver. And also the workers have really liked it as well. Being able to see all of their information in real time on the app and not having to meet up with their boss or ask their boss something and wait for a response. Being able to access that information instantly has been really helpful as well. We've seen about a huge increase in the number of people using the phone and the app to run their pays compared to pre-COVID. So that's really encouraging too.
Cool. Dave, what have you guys figured and seen?
I think I'd report something very much in the same vein. We saw, Figured enjoy a lot of success during COVID, and it was obviously farmers were spending a bit more time on their financial plan. The drought was happening as well, which I think, as much as we talk about COVID being a pretty interesting pressure point for farming, I think the drought was just as bad in many areas. So that access to financial planning and understanding where they're going, I think, became very important. But I sort of got to temper that a little bit. I think farmers have actually always been really good technology adopters. They've got sensors, and I know when I'm talking to farmers, they've quite often got their phone out and they're monitoring what's happening on the farm. So I think they've got more technology than we sometimes, in the city anyway, give them acknowledgement for. And it's already quite a lot of tech in farming. So I think this was just an accelerator, not a fundamental unlock. And the second thing is they're actually used to being isolated. COVID was less of an isolation gig for them than it probably was for people in cities and towns. So interesting, we saw the most adoption really come from accounting firms that were really saying, wow, it's time to get into the cloud. We've got to service our customers better. We've got to connect with them digitally. And that was actually where the big unlock came for us. I think the farmers have actually been the easier ones of those to actually sort of drive that adoption. They used to isolation, they used to tech. So,
interesting.
So we definitely saw the uptake.
Yeah, cool.
But I think it might have been driven by slightly different things. As far as is it here to stay? Of course it is, but I think everyone looks to augmenting digital with personal experiences as well. So. It'll change, but is it here to stay? Sure, the cloud's not going anywhere. So, we're pretty confident about that.
Good point. And so speaking of more tech, one thing I've heard a lot over the years with farmers, not just at Fieldays, but generally, the amount of apps I've got. Why do I need so many? Why do I need so many platforms? Why can't they be integrated? I see you all smiling. Maybe Dave, if you start with that and just give me your thoughts and what's changing.
Yeah, look. I think as I go through your question there, I'd sort of break it into two parts. One, can I just have one app that does it all? Look, I think that might be nice in a sort of a theoretical world. In reality, we've already got on this call people who are great at health and safety, at payroll, at hiring, financial management, and that access to that specialisation, I think, is really critical. You need software that's good at what it does. Software's hard to build, really hard to build. So you need really good domain expertise in each of the areas that you've got. And I think what the new world of computing allows is farmers to access really great software that does its job well, and I think it's really, really important. And I come to your phone, you've got how many apps on your phone? We can all use them. We all know how they work. Have they got different interfaces? Yes, slightly. But if they're really good apps, you keep them and use them. So I think that's still the model. I think that model makes sense. The second part of your question was that why can't they be integrated? And hallelujah, I think this is a real industry issue, and I think we've got more work to do in the New Zealand ag industry particularly to allow data from, processors, suppliers, etc., to be more integrated. Interesting. We've got PaySource on the call. So, our systems integrate through, we both integrate with Xero. So someone makes the pay in PaySource, it comes into Xero, and into Xero into us. So, that data is entered once and we know where it comes from, and it's integrated into a system. And I just think we need a bit more system thinking. And I don't think farmers should have to rekey data in from to 3 different systems just because there's 3 different systems. So it's a lot more work to do on that, I think, as an industry.
Yeah, and I guess that was the crux of my question, really. A little bit controversial. What do the rest of you guys think about that?
Yeah, I have. We've had to do a lot of thinking around that at Onsite because initially, we did see that problem of people have at lethargy. Basically, they've got too many systems and they don't want to have to use them all, and it's double handling data is a big problem as well. So there is a lot of synergy between these apps out in the rural sector, but there is also a little bit of overlap. So my question has evolved to challenge, what are you wanting to do with this integration? You say you want to integrate one app with the other. What's actually the outcome that you're after? Because often it's a lot simpler than you think. Someone talks integration, you're thinking all singing, dancing, talking to each other system, but in reality it could be as simple as a spreadsheet of data being sent across and uploaded, or it could be just one little element being integrated to another system. So I think there is an element of talking to each other that apps should do just to stop double handling of data, which is what we're moving to. We're really good out in the field and dynamic, and that's what we do. So we're starting to build functionality to send information back to back-end systems like risk and incident information into your back-end system that the office manages, and then maybe looking at things like checking information to a system to see if they're trained or qualified. So I think it's little things like that to be sending back and forward that make sense, but I think it can be really easy to go a bit too far with this and do an all singing, all dancing thing, and then you create a lot more complexity, and it doesn't actually make the experience any nicer. It can often make the experience worse.
Yeah, I also think it's really important that we don't overcomplicate things and assume that all of our clients are the same as each other. So every single employer and farm or kiwi fruit picker, as we were using that example before, they're all going to have different requirements. So if you had one app that did everything, for starters, it would be extremely complicated and comprehensive, but there'd be a lot of information in there that you might never use in your business or on your farm. So I think it's important that we do keep that separation, but it does bring the point, I agree with Dave from Figured. Some of us do already talk to each other. We talk to Xero, and Xero talks to Figured, so there's a complete package there for the farm if you need it. And it's all in live time. Then we also suck data in for other companies. So if you're using a time clock company, for example, we can import that data. Most systems will talk to each other. It might just not be automated. But I think it might be better to specialise in our own areas, absolutely.
Genevieve, you have thoughts?
It's about making that simple, right? We've got a computer can talk to another computer. It's just about identifying what information needs to be shared. And we've moved enterprise solutions meant that you'd keep everything in one place. But now you can see the companies that we've got on here, we're part of a chain and solving multiple business processes, and I think that growers and farmers should expect that you can integrate with other systems. It should just be a baseline that you can use the information that you put in, and then you can get it back out and use it in the way that will benefit your business and give you visibility of what you want.
Yep, cool. How do you see technology on farm evolving in terms of managing processes, staff, finances, hiring? What are your thoughts on that? So you've obviously got, I'm sure you've got big long roadmaps each. Not asking you to divulge them, but just your general thoughts on where the world's going. Dave.
Okay. I'll take a stab at that. It's quite an open question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So look, it's I think a general trend. Number one, I think farmers have been very strong at adopting technology. I'd say in the paddock, in the field. There's gosh, you get in the latest John Deere tractor, it's got sensors and data, actually coming out of it as it drives along. So, there's that real what's going on the farm, I think, has already gone through the first phase of a fundamental transformation. I think that's still to really play out in the back office, and I think there's just a lot of advantages still to come from farmers by automating more of their back office functions and making that part of their world a hell of a lot easier so they can spend more time being great farmers. So, that's obviously Figured and Paysource and, Onsite, we're all here because we basically focus on a lot of those back office functions that have a connection to what's happening on the farm. For us, our major phase where we're taking most of our R&Ds and actually on integrations and getting a lot more data to flow in and out of our platform. We think there's data on farm, there's data in large sort of industry repositories, there's all of that we want to actually bring into Figured much more easily, and there's strategic partners that we want to work with and wire our systems together. So that's actually a pretty cool part of our roadmap. The other parts are really just continuing to drive ease of use, ease of adoption, because the easier and the faster we can make our systems work, the better. So the two big areas, but I do think there's a big unlock to come in back office functionality for the agri industry in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I guess that's what I was driving at. Go ahead, Guy.
I was just going to say, I agree with Dave. I think, from what we've seen as a company, that there is a strong uptick. It's sort of going exponential at the moment. We're seeing an average of 200 users signing up a day, and that was nothing like, in a week, and that was nothing like that when you go back even a year. And I think, things like COVID definitely drive something like that, but it's also the fact that I think, to Dave's point, it needs to be simple, and I think we're getting to that point where technology can be really simple and practical. I think back in the day, even a couple of years ago, it was still quite clunky out in the field. It's a unique environment out in the rural sector, right? Like, it's not like you're in an office space where everything's pretty clean cut and there's not too much variance. Like out in the field, there's so much variance, and then it needs to be real time, needs to be simple and practical, otherwise no one's going to use it. So I think that's a big shift, is that technology is becoming much more simple and accessible. And so I think that, coupled with the operational benefits of being able to know now who is where at any given time and not have to be on the phone all day or not have to drive 40 minutes to another spot to go, find out if people are there or not, is a huge benefit, and people are starting to realise that.
Genevieve, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're dead right, because things have just changed so much. I remember 10 years ago sitting down with people and just convincing them that having a direct debit in place didn't mean that I could take all their money out of their bank accounts. It was okay. It was perfectly safe. And we've sort of moved away from that now, and everybody understands that it's safe and they're comfortable with technology. But it's about turning something that's normally a routine on the farm, a potentially boring payroll routine, turning that into an experience where they can really see the benefit, and like you're all saying, that it's simple and easy to do. We like to think that a product should be so simple to use that they don't even need to call us for help. I've never had to call the bank for help in using my banking app, but you just tap around until you figure out how to do stuff. So we'd like to think that we're moving towards that. But aside from the whole compliance piece, I think everyone's also moving in the people space. They want to be a better boss. Their workers want to be a good worker, and to do that, they need to be able to communicate with each other. So if we can provide an extra step in our compliance technology that makes it easy for them to do that, then so many other things on the farm are helped as well. An example might be if someone was injured on farm and you were trying to ascertain whether fatigue was an issue and why they caused that accident. If you can look up their timesheets and you can see that they had rostered days off and they've had adequate breaks, you can probably rule out that fatigue was a factor. So you can sometimes look at something like payroll, timesheets, and think, well, that just is a compliance task. But there are a lot more benefits around what we do.
I think the thing for us is technology is an enabler, right? It should do the thing that you need to do, and then you can forget about it and do the things that you've always wanted to do. So hiring is a massive time suck. It's really frustrating, and it actually limits the time that you actually want to spend with the people, either training them or upskilling or doing and explaining why things need to happen. And so our approach and our reason for beta, but the way that we're going to continue to build out our products, is to work really closely with the industry, not just with the industry, but with the government. We're solving a global problem that doesn't impact just New Zealand farmers, growers, producers. It's a big deal. And so what we're trying to do is solve and simplify that problem down so that it does exactly what you need. And just like a phone, and when you were able to text right at the beginning, it was really exciting, you sort of forgot about it. And so our plan going forward is to build and solve really important business problems that are basic, that are fundamental to a business, and then allow that business to grow, optimize, and have time for innovation, because that's the thing, we just don't have the time at the moment. We've got weather, we've got global pandemics, we've had droughts. What is it that we can do as businesses to solve those mundane, repetitive tasks so that we can actually put people at the forefront to do what it is that they need to do and grow their businesses?
Yeah, that's really cool, and kind of alludes to some of what my next question is really. Around making life easier for workers on farm, not just business owners, and in many cases they're the same, but not always. Maybe actually, Genevieve, if you just elaborate a little bit on how your product's making life easier for people looking for those contracts as well.
Yeah, so repeating, filling in the same information over and over again, that's not productive, and it's not supporting growers to be able to easily move into the workforce. What we were looking at doing is how we can get people to live locally and work regionally. So how can you do a full year worth of work as in seasonal work, but have that as a full-time job? So connecting, kiwi fruit, apples, meat industry, forestry, and you can have that flexibility that we know workers are wanting today. And your Pick Me profile can allow you to do that. So we can start to offer up opportunities based on what your needs are, what your skill sets are, and what it is that you want to do. And that removes that barrier for also the business owner, because they're not investing that time. They're getting that information instantaneously. They can connect in with PaySource, set up their payrolls. They can put employees in on-site, and they can make this whole chain before workers even arrive on site so that they're prepared, they're on top of what they need to do. And that not only supports the business side, but it's actually it's what the growers, it's what the workforce is wanting. They're wanting that flexibility, they're wanting that ease, and they're wanting that seamlessness. So that's what we're working to provide them, and it's what they want.
And Karen, you mentioned along a similar vein. What are you seeing in terms of actual workers having a better experience because of the way technology is changing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Genevieve. The workers are often the ones who are triggering the technology, and they're requiring their employee to do this stuff because they've talked to their mate down the road who's got this really cool app, and they want to be able to do the same things that their friend and their neighbour are doing. They mention it to their farm owner, and the farm owner can be a bit nervous. So often what we'll say to people is don't feel like any question's a stupid question, or if you feel like you're new to technology and you need some help, just ask for help, because you can guarantee you are not the only one who's thinking the same thing. And if you just ring us and ask, we all know about the other people in the industry as well. We can normally point you in the right direction for whatever problem it is you're having. And I think that's probably the big thing that COVID has done, is it's made everybody feel comfortable saying, hey, I'm new to Zoom, or hey, I'm new to this. It's the first time I've had to do this. Can someone help me out and talk me through it? And then it becomes the new normal for you, and everybody benefits from that, whether it's the worker or the employer.
That's cool. So you guys collectively probably have a quite unique view on from the data you see on the challenges facing the sector in terms of staff and labour. What are you guys seeing there? It's probably a continuation from that same question, but I think we hear about issues, but you have a unique insight, I think, from your customers. What are you seeing, Guy?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, as Genevieve was saying, especially in like your horticultural and viticulture sectors, you got year-round seasonal work, massive gangs of people all coming and going. It's an operational nightmare for the people that own and manage the properties, but it's also, for the gangs to have to go to each new place and do an induction or sign in or contact like whoever's there to make sure they know where to go and know what they're doing. Putting that all into technology and saying, okay, you sign in with OnSite, the people that need to know you're there. You can sign in on behalf of your crew, so there's your paperwork done for the sign-in. You can say what job you're there to do. You can say how long you plan to be there. You can do the risk induction. You can be doing this all in your truck, by the way. You don't even need to get out of the van while you're doing all of this because it's all geofenced. So instead of getting out, signing in maybe at an office space and then having to drive the whole van of people down the road an hour to the site or something like that, where you're really wasting time and whether that's wasting time on the contractor side or the business side, either way, it's just these little half hours or hours at a time that you can give back by simplifying it through technology. That adds up to being in a huge amount of cost saving at the end of the day every year and then more.
And Dave, what are you guys seeing?
Well, I think when it comes to staff, I think I defer to other people on this call. Obviously, we see sort of the financial impacts of that, but we don't necessarily see the direct worker impact. So I think staffing, there's probably three other much more qualified people to sort of talk through that. But in general, we see a very clear connection between farms that are, if they're running profitably, if they're managing their finances properly, they end up being better workplaces. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So our connection is probably a little less direct, but well-performing farms, they employ well, they attract the best talent, they're the best places to work. That really is that simple. Yeah.
Is that
attracting talent? Yeah, attracting talent is the thing, right? How do you do that? That I'm a massive promoter. Go work in ag. There are so many opportunities. It's not that you were just going to go and prune kiwi fruit. That's not the opportunity. There are a multitude of positions that you can have. And I think the first thing is, and what's really important for us is, how do we remove that friction and that restriction so that people can easily try and see what it's like to work in the industry and then understand what that could lead to, future job opportunities, moving across. You can learn how to, I'll just use pruning as an example again, but learn how to prune in New Zealand and then go over to the south of France when we can move around the world and then use that skill somewhere else. But that's just like a particular skill. But then you've got finance, you've got all of these wonderful capabilities that we can bring to the industry and make our businesses better. And it's just an interesting place to work.
So that's an interesting segue. So I don't. Who of you is selling offshore, exporting, if that's the word for software?
Yeah.
Great.
Sure am.
Cool. And so what impact have you seen in the last few months in terms of COVID? That's probably the first one. And then I guess how important has that been to your business as it's scaled? So this goes to the ones who are and the ones who want to.
Yeah, let's maybe look at the COVID one first. Once again, look, we've got businesses in Australia, UK, Ireland. We've got some work going on in Canada and the US as well. So the COVID piece has probably been a bigger shock once again for the financial services industry, which we think are pretty important customers of ours because we want to connect financial advisors with farmers. So getting them on cloud technology has been massive, and there's been a big uptick in that. We just launched a fairly substantial system called Farm Pro in Ireland in conjunction with a very large accounting practice, and thousands of users on it from launch. So absolutely sort of fascinating when you think about the scale of the problem we can unlock by connecting advisors and farmers together and improving financial performance of farming. So that's been really big, and I do think COVID is driving the credibility of cloud technology and the need for it. We can't rely purely on people relationships, being people driving up and down driveways to solve the problems. I think we've got to look at ways of augmenting that with tech, like I said before. So that's been big. On more generally, why are we a New Zealand company and we see exporting and our technology so important? I think if we want to build a world-class piece of software, and New Zealand farmers deserve world-class solutions and nothing less, then you have to prove that you are world-class. And it requires a lot of investment, it requires a lot of people, and you need returns, not just from New Zealand, but offshore as well, to sort of drive the investment. You need to create proper world-class solutions. And you only find that out when you test your arm internationally. Like, how good are you really when you go offshore? It's a really fascinating test. So yeah, we think it's a way of, getting growth, creating a sustainable business ourselves, where we can continue to invest in the product that New Zealand farmers get to enjoy. So, for me personally, working at the intersection of agriculture and technology, which are two amazing New Zealand industries, couldn't be in a better place, really. Absolutely fascinating, and it's a delightful two industries to be a part of.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Guy?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. It's interesting. We're only in the initial stages of going offshore, and predominantly we've got a small footprint in Tasmania. A bit of a mix of poultry and arable and things like that, and a bit of viticulture. And what we've sort of found, firstly, it's more complex overseas because you've got states and things like that with their own different rules and regulations. So, the main thing that kind of struck me was that, and probably not unsurprisingly, the rules weren't as strict around traceability and essential working, things like that. When I was talking to some of our customers over there, they were it sounded far more blasé. Probably isn't supposed to be that way, but we dealt with the situation so well with Jacinda and having that lockdown and getting rid of the issue. So I think it did somewhat raise the profile of digital sign out, tracking, things like that. But I think to Dave's point, it's more around, we do have world-class technology coming out of New Zealand, and I've seen heaps of examples of super successful New Zealand's agri-tech going global. And that's sort of what we're starting to sense as well, is that we do have really good solutions to go offshore that aren't necessarily there yet, or haven't found the agriculture sector yet.
So I'd be surprised if you guys weren't thinking about going offshore, Genevieve and Karen.
Yeah, so look, we have obviously, sorry Genevieve, but yeah, look, we've obviously thought about that. A little bit limited on what we can say in that space, but I think the biggest thing for us is what we've noticed overseas is, aside from that things are quite different in each country, the legislation and the requirements, it's also actually that there's very little available in the agri-tech space for people. So when they hear about something like our product, and they might hear about it through Xero or through Figured or another way, I've spoken to lots of people in other countries just recently, and they're all indicating that if something like PaySource or Figured or any of the people that we have on today, if that was available in their country, it would be groundbreaking. So there's absolutely huge opportunity if you're looking overseas.
Cool. Yeah, I agree fully.
Yeah, that's the thing that's been most important. We're solving a global problem, and I've done a lot of researchers over in the US at the end of last year, and they actually look to New Zealand for innovation. They look to New Zealand for agri-tech innovation because of the way that we approach problems. We work alongside industry. We work alongside our customers. We're real. We ask those questions. We're straight to the point. We're DIY nature, where we go out there and we try things. And that's something that we looked at internationally. And it's something that we can push and something that's part of our sales. And then it enables us to bring it back to New Zealand. We are building world class. That should be the expectation of what comes out of New Zealand. It should be the expectation of what it is that you're using. And I think, again, it's about understanding what those needs are and then working alongside and building that with those customers. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're just about out of time. So if the past few months have taught us anything, it's that it's hard to predict what the future has in store. But thanks to the innovative companies that we've talked to today and many more throughout New Zealand, farmers can be better prepared for any challenges that may come our way. So to find out more about how Callaghan Innovation can support your business, check out Callaghan Innovation's website, callahaninnovation.govt.nz, or just give us a call on the numbers you'll find there. Whether it's to tell us about your innovation or find out what we can do to help you, we'd love to hear from you. So you'll find all our contact details on our website. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and don't forget to check out the other great Field Days online sessions.